up is did you guys all have a chance to review the meeting minutes for the July 27th?
Yes, no objections.
All right, no objections from me, so we'll consider those approved. Then we'll go ahead and go through proposed changes for section 266, the administrative code.
You have about 10 proposals there for your review. We're not asking for any action on it.
Is this the same one that we got last time?
No, this is a new batch, yes.
This is a new batch, okay.
We're getting in the whole stretch though, that's the good news.
Okay.
My favorite thing is the city council makes me read as many titles as possible at one time, Mr. Coleman, so.
Well, I don't have to do that. That's gonna be
them
Amber.
all individually.
No, I also don't do that.
Yeah, so these are for your review between now and the next personnel commission.
Okay.
And then after this batch, there's literally, I think, 5 or 6 left. And it deals with nomenclature, some other ancillary benefits, and we'll wrap those up last with this one.
Well, what I will say is, I know it's probably menial and tedious, all of those other phrases, but I do appreciate you guys going up and cleaning stuff out and making it so we're operating under a code that is the way we're operating, you know. So I will keep that.
So we're gonna just look all these over and come back and talk about them next time? Okay.
Yes, yes. So if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to contact one of the 3 of us.
All right.
Happy to answer any questions, but for the most part, it was feeling out language that was specific to employees that are now in unions, police, fire. Also utilizing some of the language from police, fire, and asking contracts to be consistent with certain sections of the codified ordinances.
Did we ever go, I guess I have these old ones in here. Did we already send those on to council?
Yep.
2020-07, 266.06.
I think the clients have been.
These are the ones I just have in my, and it could be me not cleaning out my.
Yes, because this one is the council pay.
Yep, see, that's just me.
And then actually, so that one is done. And then these 2 groups, I think you have new ones before you.
Look at all these.
Oh, yeah, it's, all right,
Yeah, you have the new ones before you.
perfect. Good.
Let me ask you one more.
Good reading material.
If I look at the first one, it looks like the yellow highlighting in the old ordinance is what was deleted in the new ordinance.
Sometimes, yes.
For that particular one, yes.
But in the next one,
The next one,
it looks like new language is now highlighted.
Yes, because if we took something, what I tried to do for you was if we took something out so that you wouldn't see it in the next one, highlight it in the old ordinance. If we put new stuff in,
Highlight it.
I highlighted it in the new ordinance. And this is completely new because it's from the patrolman's contract, cut and paste directly, so that we have consistency throughout the city. So for instance, this one, you'll see is that, and then, okay, so here's one where it's old language that's been cut out and changed, new language that's in there.
Okay.
Okay? I tried to make it easier with the highlighting. If it screwed it up, I'll send you unhighlighted versions.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, so I guess it is our job to review those changes and have questions if we have them for the next meeting. Do you guys have any more questions on that?
No, that's straightforward there.
Looks like we're gonna turn it over to Kelly for the 2022 budget.
Sure, a proposed budget for the big HR office. So I gave you the detailed spreadsheet. It's on both sides of the paper. So some items to note, we're once again asking for a full-time occupational safety and health coordinator to be added to the staff. We continue to believe that our consultants are not serving us as best as they could, and the police and fire divisions have come across a variety of topics as they're going through their lexical policies and procedures that we're reviewing with each division, and each of them had a rather extensive section on safety. So they are able to utilize the occupational and safety person as well for things like injury and illness prevention, communicable diseases, ground bladder inspections, lockout, tagout, hazardous communications. So they have large sections in their new policies and procedure manuals that we're reviewing that are going to be, they need somebody to help manage that, and we believe that a full-time occupational and safety health person would be in the best interest of the employees.
Okay, how much are we?
The range for that position is $50,000 to $75,000. They're in CDND. I have it budgeted at 75, so smack in the middle.
All right, so band D, and you have it budgeted at 75?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then I guess kind of grouped with that is the equipment.
Yep, there's
The
a
truck.
proposed truck, cell phone, laptop, office equipment. The roll-ups are included in the insurance for presuming a full-time employee with family benefits for health and dental insurance. So those are included as there as well.
Is it possible to get a copy of this? So what I've seen in some of the other ones is the side-by-side with the previous year with the percentage increase.
Yeah,
Percent decrease. That's, oh, you have it?
Well, no, I have my stuff from.
I think
Oh, from finance, okay.
I got this right here.
The print is just very, very small, so
Gotcha.
that's why I did the details, so it's.
And at this point, it
I
might be a good
appreciate
idea to have Amber explain what Amber's been working on.
Yeah.
Like some of the
Thank
line
you.
items look
Getting
really
software.
good.
Okay.
So Amber, I don't know if you want to
Wonderful, yeah.
step up and just kind of mention the class, line items.
Yeah, kind of for Corey's benefit, because we did talk about this in finance already when we started the budget.
I can't hear it enough because, I need to hear things multiple times if it's okay.
Sounds good. With all departments, we're combining salary lines, yes.
I got a little bit of that in
Okay.
the service. So.
Okay, good. So that takes care of that. And then also, we're looking at, we called it, it's the 51814. We're gonna change the name of that account, and again, this is citywide. We're gonna put everything in there that's related to kind of IT, but just for that department. Software, subscriptions, phones, cell phones, anything like that. Anything that's cloud-based, again, software, all of that will be put into that line. So you'll see some lines will go down, and then throughout the city, this 51814 is pretty much up in all departments because just of moving between the line items.
You mean it's not Kelly asking for a
No.
2,600% increase?
It's really not.
If that works.
Yeah, so hopefully that helps. But yeah, the big ones are the technology line item and the salaries, how we're combining them now. And then going forward, this is hopefully the last year that we have this version, this format of the budget because we are starting our new software. And so it should be easier and have more information for all levels of our city.
But the only thing is by putting the salary out, we never see how much each person makes.
And that's also been the case in the past.
Yes.
And everybody has, historically, for whatever reason, right or wrong, everybody's used this format only in the past. When Amber came on board, and I think last year was the first year, we asked her to create something that was a little bit more detailed to help everybody out. But everybody didn't utilize this in the same fashion. So with the new software, that's going to give, everybody will be doing it the same way. There'll be no one-offs, two-offs, whatever the case may be. But if you look at this sheet, you could kind of see what went down negative-wise on the salaries.
Yes.
Kind of what got rolled up, for the most part, into the salary line items.
We can see it this year. Will we be able to see that in years to follow?
In years to follow, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because we're trying to decide what information we carry over out of the old system into the new finance system. Because since everybody wasn't doing things the same way, we don't want to take garbage out, put garbage in, and then still not have it an apple to apple. So we're still trying to figure that out, what information gets ported over, or do we start our new history from day one? But we could certainly go back and provide sheets like these for historical information. And if we're just talking on the personnel side, that's not that big of an issue versus all the other line items.
Right, just the personnel.
Because Amber and I are finding out people are using contract line items one way versus an equipment line item versus a professional service. So we don't want to take that information that's not necessarily good information and put it into a new finance system because it's not going to be meaningful at all.
What Corey had mentioned before, he wants to make sure that personnel is aware of any raises or anything, any fluctuation at all in salaries. So I just thought we always need a reference point to go back to.
That's actually what I was going to ask mainly about, if it makes sense to take over. So I guess when we are implementing salary changes, I assume those take place when we approve the budget and they're implemented January 1st for most positions. Is that correct? Okay, so when do those actually take hold?
Those take place whenever the mayor deems that they will take place, if they're outside of the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
Each of the 5 collective bargaining agreements has a date certain.
Right. And
But for non-bargaining unit, since I've been here, it has fluctuated all over the map as to the time of year. So for instance, this particular year, even though we were in collective bargaining negotiations with all 5 units, back on February 8th, the mayor appointed all non-bargaining employees a 2% raise. And then on June 28th, he awarded 3 additional raises to three separate people. And again, now that the collective bargaining agreement process is over with, the mayor is taking a look at additional performance increases for this year based on performance. And we're literally in the mode right now of compensation for this year is based on performance of last year.
okay.
But because we were in collective bargaining, the mayor didn't want to go too far one way while we were still in negotiations.
Yeah, I guess from my position, what I'm looking for, it leads right back into what Mark was talking about, is I would like to get a period each year where we're anticipating this committee doing wage review. So what's going up, what's going down, why are those changes being made? And I view it as kind of a chance for the administration to give us a clear picture on what they see positions transitioning into, if there's a big increase, what additional responsibilities, or if we're breaking positions off into 2 different positions, that kind of thing, so we can kind of understand the growth of the personnel within the city as well. So when I'm looking for when do these get implemented, is when's a good time for us to review those wages and kind of give you feedback as a committee on council?
It depends, because there's some years we haven't done until June, till August. One year we didn't do it all, sometimes they're retroactive.
Yeah, and I think that could be the case, and I view it as the administration is still going to drive those requests, and ultimately we approve budgeting for that. But if we could get into a consistent pattern where every November, personnel committee is going to be.
I will pass your request along to the mayor.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know how feasible, but it would be great if we could get in the pattern of that.
But I do have this document that I think was mentioned, not at the personnel committee, but perhaps a different committee.
I think it was in service, probably, I mentioned it.
But this is actually what we gave to payroll clerk via Amber when the mayor reported pay increases.
Yeah, because I know there's going to be quite a bit this year with the bans being implemented.
So that's what has been done to date, and those that are highlighted yellow, those individuals did not receive pay increases. They were capped out in their pay ranges under the system that was in place up till.
But that should be taken care of for next year, where the next cap, right? That was the whole. Okay. At least for the most part, I'm sure we'll still run into that occasionally, but the idea would be to not run into that, right?
But will there be a separate document for us to see what those salaries actually are at the time, or?
Oh, sure. All I knew was that somebody was interested in the percent increase.
Okay.
This document, I just printed out on
Yes.
my computer.
Um,
But what we could do
Going back to
getting
this.
ready for a new software system, is there's probably a way for us to take, because it's not that many number of people, is to have a static moment in time, December 31st, 2021, and we got everybody's salaries at that time. Yeah, so we can do something to make sure that, once we start the new finance system, we know what the recent past was. That'll be easy enough for number.
Yeah, it would be great to like have this and then, what their position is on there, what their actual wage is.
Yeah, we can drop it
Yeah.
down.
Is that what you're talking about, Bridget? Not this aggregate number of all salaries?
We can just take this and drop in columns with titles, current salaries, and that's easy enough to do.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily, like, I think it can be different than the budgeting review we're doing, and then
Yeah.
obviously that goes into the line item for the salaries in the different departments. Yeah, I do like that as well. But I do want to get in a habit so that we're not in a position where, we're not analyzing whether people should receive raises or it's not on council that's holding up, raises. I would like to get in a pattern and guidance from the administration of when that review would be proper. But I would like it to be on a yearly basis and be expected of when it's going to occur.
Again, I'll pass that along to the mayor.
I appreciate that.
Mayor's in charge of the.
Yeah, I'll talk to him as well, about that plan, but just so it's out there so people get what I'm going for.
Now, specifically on this HR budget, I had to struggle before, Amber, with some of the other groups. You took the clerk, which I guess now is an executive assistant, is that right?
Yes.
Then the safety coordinator, and moved that up into the one line item, along with the HR manager. Now,
The safety coordinator is in this year's budget as a part-time position. So in the 2022 budget, it's as a full-time position.
And budgeted for 75.
And budgeted for 75.
that might explain the discrepancy then.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 33.5 that existed last year is going up to a full-time 75.
Correct.
Okay. Now, is contracts disappearing altogether?
No, many of the contracts that is now negative, if you look down at communication services, the line item that has appeared to jump 2,000%.
Yeah.
That is where they reside now, because those were essentially subscriptions to software, annual licenses for NeoGo, for Learn, for Predictive Index. They're all spelled out on the detail sheet that I did.
So we're actually down, that budget is actually being reduced in a sense.
Yes.
Okay.
And then as you noted, the other larger items that are actually carried forward from this year to next year, hopefully, is like the equipment purchase for a safety coordinator.
So is that what the 51814 2021 amended budget, was that 1,500 the cell phone and service for the safety coordinator?
1,500 was beautiful.
Bottom line of the worksheet.
So the 51814 has 1,500 in it for cell phone service for the safety coordinator?
Yeah, like is that what the carryover is from that line from 2021 to 2022 is proposed? Okay.
And yes, Councilman Pullman, in the 2021 budget at 1,500 is that exact same thing.
Okay, that's, yeah. Okay.
That's now.
So it's pretty much everything else just got moved,
Correct.
except for that cell phone, okay.
It's been so long since I looked at it.
When the, this is history now, I guess. Help me with my memory here, though. When the clerk went up from 36 to 46,000, Was that because, did we establish a new position and assign a salary to that, or is that when we moved some people around?
She was part-time and she went full-time.
Yeah, okay.
And it was as an administrative assistant, yeah.
Yeah, that you combined some positions.
And it's-
So she basically went up 10,000 to,
Yeah.
well, quite a bit of money each year.
Yeah, I was
So
just
part-time.
trying to remember, because that didn't come through for review, it was a
Right.
greater than 7% increase, but it was a combination of
It
roles.
went from full-time to part-time and then from that to.
So I guess my question would be on this, what are budget items that are just kind of, maybe placeholders isn't the best, best word for it, but I imagine they're recurring expenses that we don't necessarily spend all the money each year, but,
Furniture and fixtures, we typically, the finance department typically has somebody put a plug figure in for furniture fixtures, for stationery, sometimes for IT, like in my budget.
yeah.
Right now, I can't identify any particular IT equipment that I need, but we usually have like a placeholder with like $1,000
Mhm.
in my budget. And whether that's spent or not, just depends on if my surface breaks.
Right. And do we carry that amount over into the next year's budget if we have like office equipment that's gonna
We
be,
don't carry it over unless it's actually encumbered under the
Okay.
purchase order.
okay,
So if we don't spend it this year, it goes away, and then we're looking to, in the
okay,
new budget, add dollars for that same purpose
Gotcha.
as a placeholder, but we're not carrying it over in the sense that we're carrying it over and adding to it.
okay.
And Kelly has kind of a benign budget compared to some, to some.
Yeah.
But there are other positions that I wanted to make sure you were aware of that we're asking to go from part-time to full-time, or will be new positions in and of themselves that you may or may not be on the committee when that particular department or division comes up. So for instance, it was discussed, I believe, at the finance committee meeting a week or two ago, I think. So in my budget, in the administrator's budget, our public information officer is in there currently as part-time. I'm asking for it to go to full-time for 2022. The current PIO had her last day in office today, but she will still be doing some work for us on a part-time basis for the next couple months while we're gearing up to hopefully get that position posted sooner rather than later. And I have talked to at least 2 of the 3 committee members up there about the notion of if your comfort level is such that you believe that that position at this time, in this day and age, should be full-time. We would like to understand that, so perhaps if you're comfortable with that notion, Kelly could start the process of advertising and recruiting, because it will take us at least 2 months to get this position filled. And in the meantime, her duties are being split up between several people. One is Kate, one is Elaine Cantorno, and one is Nathan Summers. And then Shannon's still going to try her best to help us out if we need some emergency press releases in writing.
I know we had a conversation about this. What was the, were we gonna make that salary or was that an hourly?
It's hourly according to the pay bands. It's a pay band E with a minimum of 45 and a maximum of 75. Currently in my budget, that's in there at 65,000, but that 65,000 includes a couple $1,000s worth of anticipated overtime, assuming that there's events on the weekend that the mayor will request this person to be at, groundbreakings, whatever the case may be. So it's roughly about $30 an hour is what I budgeted.
Okay.
That's a little over the midpoint in the pay band, and we'll have to see where we end up landing in terms of applications and experience.
Is
We
it-
can find somebody with that experience, what our offer will be versus what their counter offer will be.
Is that I guess when I'm thinking about that position, we're getting big enough that could probably be a full-time job, right?
The current PIO says she could absolutely spend 8 hours every single day.
Would that be something we're anticipating then, if, you know, obviously if we get someone that's worth $60 an hour, you pay them $60 an hour and you keep an eye on them and potentially offer a full-time X budget, like salary, so that we're saving money but guaranteeing a certain amount,
The
or?
difference between hourly and salary is an FLSA issue, and they have to meet certain thresholds in order to be deemed salary versus an hourly
Yeah.
employee. And obviously, Mr. McCarthy
Yeah.
and Kelly know that way better than I do. But I don't know that this position would ever rise to the position of a salary position based
I
on
would be
these.
surprised based on the job duties that this position will cost more or less.
Okay. I,
They have, yeah, I'm sorry, they just have to make themselves available at all hours, right?
They would, yeah.
They're okay with,
But they would get paid overtime. If
Okay.
they exceeded 40 hours in a week of regular time.
okay.
yeah, because I would imagine a position you'd almost want to design as exempt because there are going to be weeks that are work heavy.
Yeah, I don't know if you can talk to the outside counsel or whatever, but I would think if you configure the PIO right, you could get it exempt. I think as professional or administrative, I think you'd have a shot, but maybe that, do you need, or are you asking for authority tonight to go hire a PIO? 'Cause-
Not authority, I guess just getting your impression on whether you believe it should be full-time, if you're comfortable with that notion of full-time.
Yeah.
Because our concern is if the majority of council is very comfortable with that notion and are intent on having it stay in the budget, then we would start the advertisement process, which we typically advertise for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we have to get resumes in, and it takes another several weeks to shoot through them, sort through them, start interviews, and we're gonna be at the end of the year by the time that actually happens. We're just concerned about waiting until January to start that whole process, and we're looking at March
Right.
or later before we have somebody on board.
What I think if we're budgeting 65,000 for that, it would be great if we could make it, if we're already at that number, figure out a salary where we're gonna be competitive. Because I think one of the things we battle as a government is transparency issue. That's gonna be the constant complaint. And that is a vital position to combat that and getting people information. So as far as getting someone that's good and well-paid, and to me, that's a no-brainer, especially if we're already budgeting 65 for it. And if we can get them exempt, that makes a lot of sense as well to me.
Yeah, I think I told both of you that as the biggest skeptic of social media and all that stuff, with Shannon, I saw really what that position can do. It's, you know, if we get someone as good as she
There's a
was.
lot of our story that we're still not able to tell just because we don't have the body who's here all the time
Yeah,
to interact with all the departments and divisions.
yeah.
And I think that could be a position that really snowballs into one of the most important positions in the city, quite frankly, and you might find a really young talent.
Social media is going away, unfortunately.
I don't think so either, and that's honestly something that young people are very talented at.
That's the key, a young talent.
And we might be able to keep.
You and I have to quit fighting it, Tim. We just have to quit fighting.
Discrimination.
Yeah, I'm like, that makes Kelly nervous, and it makes me nervous.
Yeah, so,
So that is one of the positions that we are looking for, I'll say, an upgrade on. And
I'm all for
then you'll also see, if you're on safety committee, which is coming up next, that Chief Jones and the mayor are asking for 3 additional patrol officers in next year's budget. That'll be the first time I think we've hired additional patrol officers in, no, new. I mean, we've not, since I've been here, added any actual patrol officers except for 2 SROs. So this would actually be 1 new officer on each shift, days, midnights, and afternoons. And those are about 73,000 apiece. That's not the starting rung on their pay ranges in their CDA, but we have language in there that allows for lateral transfers from other departments or divisions. And we've been pretty successful lately on that recruitment aspect. So this is somewhere in the middle of their pay range, their pay scale. And then the utilities, public utilities is looking also, will be requesting 3 additional operators, both water distribution and collection system operators. Those positions will be split 50-50 between their 2 funds, 331 and 332. But their starting pay for that position is $55,000 on the collective bargaining unit scale. And then the only other new position that we will be requesting is in public service, and that is for a position that we're loosely labeling arborist. But Mr. Ross is looking to have somebody who heads up the entire street tree trimming program and has a dedicated crew because we have 10,000 plus street trees. that have milestone prunings that are supposed to happen throughout his lifetime. And since his inception, my understanding of the street tree program, very little trimming has happened. Up until the last 2 years when Mr. Ross came on board. Last year, I think we trimmed over 1,000 of our 15,000 street trees. This year, we're hoping to exceed that by a bit, but we have a long way to go. And this position would be able to work year-round. It can work during the winter, during the summer, spring, fall. It is not season dependent. So that will be the last additional position that you'll see come before you through the bidding process.
Bridget, and now the chief walked in, perfect time. The 3 new police officers, is that in addition to filling the attrition? Because didn't we have
Yes.
like 6 retirements or
Yes.
some ungodly number?
We have had, since I became chief, 15 new officers hired, just through people that have retired.
So when word got out that you got hired,
They all ran.
Yeah. You know all these guys, chief, these new officers?
I know their names, I don't know their unit numbers yet.
Okay, so this will be really a net 3, not just, okay,
Correct.
good.
yep. The one, I guess I have a question for Amber. On these budget worksheets, is there a way to, and I do not want this to take a long time if it's a big, is there a way to get 2021 year-to-date on these? So we can see which line items are being used, which ones aren't?
Yes, if you look at the month-end reports that Amber generates, you can go to that particular account number,
Okay,
and you'll be able to see what, what has been, what was budgeted, what's been expensed, what's encumbered, what's still left, and there's a percent along the side.
okay, perfect, thank you.
There's not an easy way to put it in this.
Gotcha, yeah, and that's,
Software.
Yeah,
Perfect.
One of the many
One of the
reasons. One of the many reasons.
yeah, okay. It's just, it's nice whenever you have these nice forms, and thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate the way it's presented, I'm just,
Going forward, it will continue to get better.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
You're saying when we have the new software, we can just do a search for that, and, I mean, we can
And
just
we'll be
print?
able to see
Just-
where we are right now. Right now, we have to wait till the end of the month and everything's done, and then we roll it, but it will be real time. We can pull up anything and see right now what's left in the budget.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic, because then when we're doing these budget reviews, it also helps with those things like, I would imagine over time, you'll be able to see, hey, you know, Kelly didn't do anything with her office expenses for 4 years, and now she's asking for 5,000. You know, should we say yes, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And that will only be a benefit to you, it'll be a benefit just to the
Yeah.
departments themselves.
One more question, now that we become the finance committee temporarily. City council has its own budget, right? Is that somewhere in this
Correct.
packet that I haven't
That
been
was
able to
sent-
find?
You may have seen a series of, and I don't know if you got my emails on the budget, Mr. McCarthy, because we're having that issue. But there is a separate budget for city council, and that should have been sent. I had a series of like 2 or 3 emails that I sent
Yeah.
out with all the exactions, that should have been one of them.
It's probably in here, I just,
It wasn't one of the ones we reviewed on finance committee.
Let me see, I have it here.
In your whole packet, finance numbers, it's page like 4. The code is 1101001. Right after the revenue. Those of you that have the whole.
Yeah, I have the full packet. I see it. Yeah, it's total console there, yeah,
Yes, yes.
after total receipts, yeah.
And nothing changed on this one because when this was done, the compensation hadn't been changed for council, although I don't think it impacts anybody for, but it could possibly impact for next year. Yes.
3 positions, it impacts next year no matter what happens in November.
So what we would do is, if the council wants to look at this and make changes, we can do that now, or we can do it during the amended budget process, whatever is your flavor for that.
well, I don't know, we could talk about it in December at finance, Mark, could we?
Yeah, we sure can, yeah, because we already know no matter what the outcome, well, we'll know the outcome by December, but it doesn't matter the outcome, that will have to go up for 22, won't it?
And I can always put together a new proposed based on the salary piece, but what is in here is, you may recall, Mr. Matuzak several years ago, wanted a separate line for legal counsel or city council. That's the $20,000 that is there. And then there is a line called other mutual projects, which I'll say back in the day, used to be a corresponding number in the mayor's budget, and that's what was used for the annual employee holiday luncheon. And then there's another expense line item that from time to time, council may request something of administration, or you may attend a small training or whatnot, and we'll take it out of that line item. Then the special projects line item, that's the line item that has historically been utilized to allocate dollars to the Perrysburg Heights Community Center. So 20,000 has been the request of the last several years. And I believe this year, Councilman, and it could have been during one of your council meetings, asked that at the 2022 budget, that additional 10,000 be added, so that you have not only an allocation for the Heights Community Center, if you wanted it to go there, you still have additional dollars in case another project or request came into council. But we can certainly make that whatever council wants. It's kind of historical at this moment in time.
Yeah, it was Councilman Smith that brought that up.
Any other questions on that?
Nope.
All right. Let's move on to the last thing on the agenda, discussion of law director and prosecutor positions, potential amendments to the code and suggested sections of review of the charter concerning those positions. I know there's been some talks between all of us lately about this. I think the general idea, and I've talked to Kate directly, I've talked to Bridget directly on this, is to go through the code sections. I have some of them in front of me. And basically the idea would be to have the law director be independent, kind of on an island, so to speak, that answers only to the mayor and city council. And then also within that is putting the prosecutor basically on the level of a department head, where they're responsible to the city administrator and the mayor and council as far as approval goes. So making substantive, I can't say that word, changes to the code, and obviously we're not in charter review yet, but maybe implementing those changes logistically so that when charter review comes around, it can be a suggested change to the charter itself. I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to give some more thought to that law director, put him on an island.
Yeah.
Plus that requires a charter change. I don't know if I'm ready to get on board with that just yet. Having the prosecutor report to the administrators, I mean, that's fine by me. I mean, it ended up where it was. I think it was just a historical fact that when these positions were created, I think it was Cindy Smith who was a prosecutor, and she worked at Pete Gwynn's law office. So we had the prosecutor report to the law director because they were working in the same law office. The police chief reports to the administrator. I don't see why the prosecutor couldn't as well. And a law director is a much broader focus. It's more clearly, I know Kate comes from a criminal background, but the law director per charter is an advisor to council and the mayor. And so I think that ought to be the focus for the law director. Prosecutor, I mean, obviously works with the police, but that seems to me to be a position that should report to the administrator. And then on a going forward basis, we should think about that law director and whether that should report to the administrator. I want to give that some more thought, but.
Yeah, and I the purpose of the day, the reason I wanted this on the agenda is start those discussions publicly. I know there's been some discussions behind the scenes on things, and I kind of share the exact same thoughts as Mr. McCarthy. When it comes to the law director, I think the reason I would probably support a move outside the purview of a city administrator is I kind of view the city administrator as someone that's moving the city in a certain direction, whereas I don't necessarily want a law director with an agenda, so to speak, or anybody that has to worry about the direction the city administrator is moving things when it comes to the legal analysis of things. And not that that's happening right now or anything like that, but it just makes it so they're specifically responsible to council to provide, quality legal backing for the different options that we ultimately choose to go. And then with the prosecutor, when I talked to Kate about this, I think, the prosecutor's office was somewhat independent anyway. It's in a separate building. In a lot of ways, probably answers more to the judge and the judge's authority than maybe even the law director on a day-to-day basis. And I think it really frees up our law director to not have to worry about, trust the prosecutor to handle their budget, their staff, and answer to the city administrator and the mayor on that. And then the law director doesn't even have to worry about the prosecution side of things unless potentially we have an absence or something where a law director could come in real handy to fill in. But other than that, I think it's maybe wise to just view them as two separate law
I'm good with
departments.
that. It needs to have oversight by the administrator though or something. I mean, they are city employees.
Right.
I assume many of these policies are applicable to them as well. So I think I'm okay with having that prosecutor report to the administrator, and then, as I said, I understand the concept of the law director not being necessarily a report to the administrator. I mean, there's a bit of a conflict there, because to some extent then, as the law director who's asked to theoretically pursue the agendas that the administrator may approve, does that put him or her in a potential conflict if the mayor and council want to go a different direction? That's how we ended up with that line item in the budget, where Jim was the one who pushed on that, where he was concerned at the time that we weren't getting the independent legal advice council should receive. Now, I don't think we've ever spent a dime of that money. But we created the fund, and so that, I guess that was a manifestation of a situation in which, is the law director really advising council, or is the law director doing his or her job to do what the administrator wants him to do?
Right.
So there's some issue with that, but I don't see a need to go anywhere immediate on that, because it requires a charter change anyways, and I don't think the city wants to pay to put a charter change on the ballot in
Right.
isolation.
And the review's about just over 6 years out.
We're still a ways out.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't have to wait the full 6 years, but I sure as heck I don't think want to pay for having that on the ballot for just that issue.
No, I don't necessarily disagree with you.
So, and I think I looked, or someone told, might have been you, Corey, that the prosecutor thing doesn't require charter amendments.
I don't think it does, because I don't think the prosecutor's ever mentioned in the charter, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think there's.
You
I think
confirm
it's-
that?
I think it's just codified ordinances.
Yeah, I think this is the charter, and it doesn't even have that would be the charter. I don't think it has the prosecutor. The prosecutor would be mentioning this stuff.
Well, then we just have to get an ordinance prepared, Kate, and be doing that to have the prosecutor then, for a quick codified ordinance, report to the administrator.
So I guess, is that what we want to do, is for now, maybe have an ordinance drafted up for the prosecutor position? We can kind of go more in depth on that, but it's not necessarily time for that discussion, but I guess it's maybe on notice that it may be a direction or suggestion in the future
Yeah,
of where we're heading.
Some TBD.
Yep. Anything you want to add?
No, that sounds like a good move.
Okay. Anything else? Any other business? Any objections to adjourning?
Just one more question on this now. So this is, we are gonna get legislation drawn up for this code change and to review at our next committee meeting?
Yeah, I'm assuming next
That's-
committee.
that's the idea here?
Yeah. Certainly not Tuesday night.
Yeah, no, I
No,
wouldn't,
no,
I don't
okay.
think there's any
Next
rush.
month, yeah, next month.
Yeah, and I would expect it to come before this committee and then we'll
Right.
do it.
Okay.
All right, and no other business, we'll adjourn.
I assume, right, too.
I would assume so.